guys, I thought I would do an introduction to something called self-myofascial release using a foam roll. A lot of people have heard of foam rolling, using one of these or varieties of, but we're going to talk about it in the context of its actual origin, self-myofascial release, SMR. The reason being is that self-myofascial release is defined in terms of being the self-targeting of myo, muscle, and fascial, so fascia, to release the tissue and to essentially reset it. So self-myofascial release, and that can be done through manual therapy, through something called ischemic pressure, deep massage, and then various other techniques that therapists and other professionals use. But you can also address it yourself using one of these. And that's where it really originated from, was so that people could actually treat their own tissue. The problem with the term foam rolling, which is why I'm not using it per se, is because the technique I'm going to show you to introduce you to it highlights that the rolling bit is a little bit inaccurate. It's not the most important part. And if people get on a foam roll and roll, they're doing themselves a slight disservice. So the key thing with using one of these is to understand what happens to the tissue when you put a piece of your body on here. So we're going to use the calf muscle today, the lower leg. And when we place a piece of tissue onto the foam roll, what happens is, based on the science, and I'm going to keep it really straightforward, really simple, is that, and I'll use my calf, I'll talk you through as I do it in fact. So let me pop my lower limb on there. So we'll start at the bottom of my calf. As soon as we place a piece of myofascia, muscle and fascia, on a foam roll, it is suggested in science that the sustained pressure, so the deep sustained pressure, so especially if I put 2 feet on and start pushing down a little bit, that pressure, if it's sustained for 20 to 60 seconds, will create a feedback response with the receptors that are in my muscles and fascia. So we've got loads of receptors, Golgi tendon organs, Ruffini receptors, and lots of others that basically respond to and realise when we apply this pressure that something needs to change. And the scientific term that occurs is something called autogenic inhibition. Now, what that basically means is that in response to this technique, the tissue actually becomes inhibited by its own receptors. So when they feel this pressure and it's sustained for 20 to 60 seconds, it has a feedback mechanism which just takes away the excitability of the tissue. So when we talk about knots, adhesions, trigger points, muscle spasm, whatever term you want to use, it's that you address when you start to do this. It's that tender tissue, it's that tender area, that ache, and it basically resets that. So the way that you would use a foam roll on the lower leg, if I was going to place it on the lower leg like so, foot on the top, I'd put my arms underneath my shoulders and just be aware of your posture, so we don't want to be slouching down here, so shoulders back. And you can either stay in this position and put pressure down with the top leg, or you can lift your bum off the floor and actually create even more load with your body weight. And then what you would do, this is where the rolling bit comes in, is you would roll until you find a point of tenderness. So for me, that's a little bit sore. So I would hold there, and if I can hold my body weight, I'll just stay here, or I can put my bum back on the floor if I need to, and push down with this top leg. But I essentially stay in the same place. And this is the working section of foam rolling. So now I'm encouraging that mechanism to occur, and over the course of 20 to 60 seconds, I should feel that initial tenderness start to give. So it's actually starting to ease off a little bit now. So then what I would do is I might get up again and roll a little bit further, find another bit. Oh yeah, that's a good bit. So I'll hold there, and I'll just hold my body up for a moment. So 20 to 60 seconds till I start to feel it change. And that's where we're making a big impact on the tissue, because not only are we increasing blood flow through something called ischemic pressure. So as soon as we come off that, there's a massive flow of blood into the area, but we're encouraging this mechanism with the receptors to try and address the muscle spasm, the knots, the restriction, and allow those muscle fibres essentially to reset. So if I was going to do my calves, I might go all the way, looking for tender areas, all the way up the calf, and keep going until I find another area, hold again, until I get to just before the back of the knee. So you wouldn't place it on the back of the knee, and I wouldn't encourage you to go right into the base of the Achilles either, but kind of focus on this midsection, but the full length. And then something else you can do once you've gone down the middle is you can actually address the more perineal aspect. So we've got our perineal muscles on the side here, the outer gastroc. So if you turn your foot out slightly, only slightly, and again adopt the exact same technique, roll along the outside till you find a tender area, hold there, and so on. And so just keep going, and once you've done along the outside, you can even turn on the inside and look at the medial aspect and the medial borders of the calf as well. So you're kind of hunting out, seeking out tender areas, knots, adhesions, and then when you find an area, remember that that's the bit that matters, and hold for 20 to 60 seconds. You can spend 2 minutes on it, you can spend 20 minutes on it, it's up to you. But the key thing is you're looking for those tender areas and then move on. There's a lot of other techniques you can do, and obviously different parts of the body. And what we'll do is we'll do some e-vids to isolate all of those. But really today was a bit of an introduction into why, and just a general understanding of how applying to the calf. Hopefully it's helpful. Any questions, just let me know. Cheers!